the Mercury direct chart, which happened on June 22nd, because all of these charts are tied together. That's the way astrology works. It creates a cyclical pattern and things come around to the same degrees. And then you know that the information in those charts are tied together. So, as an example, when we look at the Mercury direct chart on June 22nd, we see that Mercury is direct at 16 degrees of Gemini, 8 minutes. And the other thing that's super interesting about this chart is that the moon returns to the same degree in Sagittarius. You can see that the moon in the Mercury direct chart is at 5 degrees of Sagittarius, and the moon, the full moon, total full moon eclipse that happened on May 26th was at 5 degrees of Sagittarius. Okay. And even the nodes have not really changed position. So it's like we were in this holding pattern. We had to close one chapter. So I hope that you were paying attention to what was happening in your life or in the lives of people around you, because I know a lot of people had some really significant, intense, and powerful changes during this time. So let's talk about what the meaning is in this chart, okay? So the full moon eclipse, total full moon eclipse, meant that you had to end something, okay? Whatever that was, it would show up in your chart, especially if it was landing in an important position in your chart. But in general, it was saying that you needed to end something. So that might have been a relationship that had to end. Maybe it was toxic or it was stagnant. It just wasn't meeting needs anymore. It wasn't helping you to grow. So that relationship needed to end. Okay. And then there might have been other situations for different people, like maybe ending a job or maybe leaving a housing situation. I know people who are not just leaving relationships and jobs and housing, but they are actually moving to another state. I mean, these are significant and powerful changes. And so you can look at what's happening in your life. And I also want to add that a lot of people had some physical issues come up. So they had to look very closely at their health regimen and making sure that they were prioritizing that. So, or it could have been a combination. I know some people who had multiple issues around these things stacked on top of each other that they had to work through, making these profound changes, closing those doors, ending those chapters, putting all of that in the past. But it couldn't happen necessarily instantaneously, especially with Mercury retrograde, because Mercury went retrograde in Gemini, the sign it rules, and the same sign where the sun was at with the full moon eclipse, and then the new moon eclipse was in Gemini, and the Mercury went retrograde right in between those. And so that brought huge changes. And I do think that the meaning of Mercury retrograde in between those two eclipses had to do with rethinking things, or whatever house Gemini rules for you. You had to rethink something, reconsider something, in a sense, sort of go back to the past, rework something, figure it out so that you would know what needs to end, and you could begin to close that chapter. And then you could plan out some new pathway and do the research and come up with a strategy. Then with the new moon eclipse, you could begin to set things in motion, although, it's delayed because of the Mercury retrograde. So when you look at the Mercury direct chart and you see that the moon is in the exact same position it was at with the full moon eclipse, and the nodes are virtually in the exact same position as well, then you know that these issues are all tied together. Okay, this was a process we had to go through in order to close that chapter and begin a new chapter. Now that we've gone through all that, we had the full moon eclipse, we had Mercury retrograde, we had the new moon eclipse, and now Mercury direct. So we've gone through that whole process. Now we're at another full moon, and that's the way the karmic story works. It starts with the eclipses, that make the promise about how your life is going to change. And these are dramatic karmic life changes. And so after we get through that process, then each new moon and full moon after that will start us on a new path. And each of those new moons and full moons bring about an important chapter that unfolds that karmic story. Let's go ahead and look at that full moon now. And by the way, I hope that you're enjoying the video that I took at Sugarite Canyon, New Mexico. All right, so we're looking at the full moon with the sun in Cancer and the moon in Capricorn at 3 degrees, 28 minutes. And this is a whole new energy. And it really brings some sense of closure or resolution, or at least, you know, the next phase in this process of life change. So I want to reiterate all of the alignments that we've been through in this entire cosmic package. Okay. So it started with the full moon eclipse on May 26th. So think back on what you were doing around that time. But you also have to go back 19 years and ask yourself what was happening in your life around that time, 19 years ago, because that will give you clues about the themes that you'll be going through again in the next 19-year phase. The reason why I say 19 years is because that's how long it takes for the nodes to go around to the same position. Okay, so the nodes were in the same position with this eclipse series as they were 19 years ago. So it's triggering a pattern that we are going back to and repeating. So the first of those alignments was the total full moon eclipse on May 26th. The second was Mercury retrograde. The third was the new moon eclipse in Gemini on June 10th. And then we had the square, the second exact square of Uranus to Saturn, which is trying to help us to break out of old patterns so that we can build something new. Like I said, this was part of a 19-year process that we are now beginning a new 19-year cycle. And we had the Mars opposition to Pluto, which was about the warrior energy that you need in order to step forward in your life and make those changes to empower yourself. And now we're at the next full moon with the sun in Cancer and the moon in Capricorn, and the energy has shifted dramatically. So what you want to do is ask yourself what matters most, because the Mercury retrograde was really about clearing out stuff that's not working anymore. As you can see, the energy that has been happening around us and just pouring down from the cosmos has really brought about a lot of significant, profound, fundamental karmic change. Okay. And so you've probably seen it in your life and or the people around you. So I feel like I really need to also touch on what's coming, because it's all this energy is still bundled together with a few more alignments that are coming up very soon. So it starts with the moon conjoining Pluto on Saturday, the 26th. And then after the moon conjoins Pluto, it makes an exact opposition to Venus in Cancer. A lot of people may have been feeling extremely sensitive, especially around issues of empowerment or feeling loved or feeling supported. And, you know, we all go through that. But the key is to recognize that the power is within us. And even when it's really, really challenging, we still need to come back and say, where is my power in this situation? How am I giving my power away? Because I really think that that's the meaning of this full moon and the alignments that follow. So after the moon finishes its transit of Capricorn, then it will move into Aquarius and make an exact opposition to Mars in Leo. And that happens around midnight. So all of those things, the conjunction to Pluto, the opposition to Venus, and the opposition to Mars all happen in the same day, which is Saturday the 26th. So that could be kind of an intense day. And then when we wake up on Sunday the 27th, we move from the moon opposite Mars to moon conjunct Saturn. So we may be feeling angry and frustrated and even depressed, because we just feel like the problems that we're facing seem almost insurmountable. And I think that, depending on what problems you are actually dealing with or what your age is, because age does make a difference. When you're older, you usually have more perspective, and that's the gift of Saturn. So by the time we get past the moon opposition to Mars and then the moon conjunction to Saturn, then we have to deal with the moon squaring Uranus. And all of that happens in the morning. So as you can see, Saturday and Sunday, Saturday all day and Sunday morning are pretty intense. Hopefully by Sunday evening, we're starting to be able to relax and feel a little bit more grounded. But we're not completely done, because once the moon finishes its transit of Aquarius, then it passes through Pisces. That won't be quite as difficult, although it may make us more sensitive, but I think it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. But then it moves, and also it moves past Aries. I think we'll probably feel the best when we're Aries, but we may be angry. But the really challenging alignment comes when the moon enters Taurus. Because what's going to happen is that Mars in Leo is going to square Uranus in Taurus. The moon in Taurus is going to square Venus in Leo. And that happens in the evening of Saturday the 3rd. So you can see there's a pattern here. The weekends tend to be the hardest. Then we get to July 4th, and that's when the energy becomes absolutely explosive, when the moon conjoins Uranus in Taurus and squares Mars opposite Saturn. That's probably going to be the most difficult day. So I really did feel like it was important to include that in this reading so that you can begin to think about how you're going to prepare, where you're going to be, who you're going to be with, what you're going to be doing, and hopefully make decisions that will help to diminish the likelihood of experiences that will be possibly unpleasant, explosive, impulsive, regretful, there's a separating energy with Uranus. And so we may be pushing to get our way, and we're not going to get our way, because Mars opposite Saturn, Saturn always wins. And then you mix that up with the moon conjunct Uranus, and people are just going to be crazy impulsive. So I really want you to have a chance to prepare for this, and whatever you can do, like I said, you can make decisions about how you're going to spend that day and who you're going to be with and what you're going to be doing, and prepare for the unpredictable. Uranus is completely unpredictable. And, don't put yourself in dangerous situations, okay? That's the main thing, because, if people get in fights, they can, if the relationship has a solid foundation, they can usually work through it. Just apologize, say, I'm sorry I spoke that way, I'm sorry I acted that way. But there are other things that, can't be fixed that easily. And that's what you need to prepare yourself for, so that you don't put yourself in those kind of situations that could be dangerous. Now, because this alignment is so important on July 4th, I will be doing another video about this prior to it, where we'll talk more about the personal issues that may be coming up, and also on the national level and possibly even the world level. This is an incredibly powerful energy. Well, I think I'm going to bring it to a close there. Again, I hope that you enjoyed the view of Sugarite Canyon State Park in New Mexico. It was one of the most, honestly, I thought it was one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed your vicarious tour, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.